Captain Ream stood at rigid attention before the holographic presence of High Admiral Voss, trying not to let his inner confusion show. The Admiral's scaled face was dark with purpose, an expression Ream had never seen on the usually laconic officer. "This is not an exploratory mission, Captain," Voss said, his throat sacs pulsing with barely contained emotion. "This is extermination. If you find even a hint of human activity, you are to fire immediately. No warnings, no attempts at contact. Immediate and overwhelming force." Ream's secondary heart skipped a beat. "Humans, sir? But the historical records are incomplete." Voss's facial scales flattened in irritation. "We've detected energy signatures matching old Earth patterns in the Savrana sector. 3 separate scout ships have gone missing investigating them." The captain's mind raced back to his childhood in Nerath, sitting in historical doctrine class, watching the grainy footage of Earth's last stand. The humans had fought with such savage desperation that the Mirth fleet had been forced to glass the entire surface of their homeworld. The instructors had made them memorize the casualty figures: 10 million Mirth dead in the final assault alone. "Your vessel is being upgraded with a sun-render cannon," Voss continued. "If you confirm human presence on any planet or station, you are authorized for immediate planetary destruction. No survivors, no warnings, no hesitation." "A sun-render?" Ream's scales rippled with shock. Planet-killer weapons were forbidden under Imperial law, except in the gravest emergencies. "Sir, with respect, that level of firepower is completely necessary." Voss leaned forward, his image distorting slightly. "You're too young to remember the war, Captain. I was there. I saw what they could do. A single human ship, badly damaged, managed to destroy 3 of our heaviest dreadnoughts before we could finish it off. They had technologies we still don't understand. Ways of thinking that—" The Admiral's scales darkened with remembered fear. "The Empire barely survived that war, Captain. If there are survivors out there who've had centuries to advance their technology." Ream felt a chill run down his spine. He had always assumed the stories of human capabilities were exaggerated for propaganda purposes. The way they'd supposedly been able to predict Mirth tactical movements before they happened. The impossible maneuvers their ships had performed, the weapons that had somehow bypassed Mirth's shields as if they didn't exist. "You have command of the 3rd Fleet for this mission," Voss said. 15 capital ships all equipped with sun-render cannons. If you find humans—" The Admiral's throat sacs pulsed dark red. "Better to destroy an entire sector than risk a single human surviving to rebuild. The Imperial family is clear on this. No risks, no hesitation, no survivors." "Understood, sir," Ream saluted, trying to keep his arm steady. "When do we deploy?" "Immediately. Your crew is being briefed as we speak. The mission parameters have been uploaded to your secure terminal." Voss's image flickered. "And Captain, if you encounter anything you can't immediately destroy, retreat at full speed and send the emergency signal. Better to be called a coward than risk another war." The Admiral's scales went nearly black. "We may rule the galaxy now, but I remember when we were prey. Never forget that, Captain. Never forget what they could do to us." The transmission ended, leaving Ream alone with his thoughts. Through the viewport of his ready room, he could see crews rushing to mount the massive sun-render cannon to his ship's prow. The weapon was longer than his vessel, its dark metal seeming to drink in the light of the station's illumination. He walked to his terminal and began reviewing the classified footage from the war. The images were grainy, degraded by time and radiation, but still clear enough to send chills through both his hearts. Human ships appearing from nowhere, striking with impossible precision, Mirth vessels torn apart by weapons that defied physics. And the final footage from Earth, as the humans chose to burn with their world rather than surrender. "Captain, to the bridge," his communicator chirped. "Weapon installation is complete. Fleet reports ready for immediate departure." Reem took a deep breath, straightening his uniform. Time to brief his crew on their real mission. Time to prepare them for the possibility of facing humanity's survivors. Time to ready them for either swift victory or total annihilation. There would be no middle ground, not with humans. As he strode toward the bridge, his crew snapping to attention as he passed, Reem couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere out there in the darkness between the stars, humanity was watching, waiting, planning. And if they were, would even 15 Sunrender cannons be enough? "Play it again," Reem commanded, his scales dulled with fatigue. He'd been reviewing the classified footage for 6 hours straight, but something about it kept nagging at him. The holographic display flickered to life once more, filling his ready room with the ghostly images of humanity's last stand. The timestamp read, Earth Calendar 2157, Final Assault. The footage showed a massive Mirth dreadnought, nearly the size of a small moon, approaching Earth's orbital defense line. Human ships, tiny in comparison, held their position. The dreadnought fired its main cannon, a blast that should have annihilated the entire defensive formation. But the human ships simply weren't there anymore when the beam arrived. "Freeze," Reem ordered. "Enhance Grid Sector 7. The image zoomed in on one of the human vessels just before it vanished. He'd watched this moment dozens of times now, and it still defied explanation. The human ship didn't activate any visible drives, didn't generate an energy field, didn't seem to do anything at all. It simply ceased to be in one location and appeared in another, as if space itself meant nothing to them. Resume playback. The battle continued. The human ships reappeared behind the dreadnought, their weapons cutting through its shields like they didn't exist. The massive vessel split apart in seconds, its death throes illuminating Earth's atmosphere below. "Computer, access tactical analysis of human weapons systems." "Access denied," the computer chirped. "Data corrupted or deleted." Reem frowned. That was the third time he'd encountered missing data about human capabilities. Either the records had degraded over the centuries, or someone had deliberately removed them. His door chimed. "Enter." Weapons Officer Kyle stepped in, her scales bright with excitement. "Captain, the crew has completed their first round of human engagement drills. Response times are 15% faster than standard combat protocols." "Not good enough," Reem said, gesturing to the frozen image of the dying dreadnought. "Look at this timestamp. 4 seconds. That's all it took them to destroy our largest capital ship. We need to be faster." Kyle's scales darkened as she studied the footage. "Sir, is it true what they say? That human weapons violated causality itself?" "That's classified information, Officer Kai." "Of course, sir, but..." She hesitated. "The Sunrender cannon installation team, they told me this model has 3 times the normal payload. Enough to crack a planet's core. They said anything less would be useless against human shields." Reem looked at his weapons officer. She was young, too young to remember the war, too young to understand true fear. "Tell me, Keel, what do you know about the final ground assault on Earth?" "Only what everyone knows, sir. We deployed the planet-killer weapons after orbital victory was achieved." Reem touched his console, bringing up new footage. "Watch." The hologram showed Mirth ground forces advancing through a ruined human city. Suddenly, children appeared among the soldiers, human children, no more than 10 years old. Before the Mirth troops could react, the children exploded, taking out entire platoons. They used their own young as weapons, Reem said quietly, not because they were desperate, not because they were monsters, but because every human, even their children, chose to die fighting rather than live under Mirth rule. An entire species that would rather go extinct than surrender. He switched off the footage. That's why we carry enough firepower to destroy whole systems, Officer Kill. Because if even a handful of humans survived, if they've had centuries to advance their technology, to plan their revenge, surely they couldn't have survived, sir. Our histories say what we wish to believe, Reem interrupted. But ask yourself this. If we truly destroyed them all, why do our ships still carry anti-human combat protocols? Why do our builders still design our shields specifically to resist their weapons? Why does the mere possibility of human survivors warrant equipping an entire fleet with planet killers? Cow's scales had gone almost white. What are we supposed to do if we find them, sir? Reem turned back to the footage of the vanishing ships. Pray, he said softly. Pray that our weapons are fast enough. Pray that our intel is accurate. And pray that if we fail, they grant us a quicker death than we gave them. His console beeped, a priority message from Fleet Command. As he read it, his secondary heart nearly stopped. Order all crews to battle stations, he commanded. System-wide scan of Grid Sector 23 shows artificial movement patterns in an asteroid field. Multiple Mirth scout ships gone dark in the same region. Rules of engagement, sir? Reem looked one last time at the frozen image of the human ships that broke physics itself. The moment we detect anything that could be human activity, we fire the sun renders. Full spread, maximum yield. He turned to his weapons officer, his scales dark with determination. Better to be called butchers than to let them have a second chance at us. As Kel rushed to relay his orders, Reem couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere out there humans were watching his fleet. And unlike his own species, they wouldn't hesitate to strike if threatened. The hunt was about to begin, but Reem was no longer certain who was the hunter and who was the prey. Multiple contacts. Science Officer Lena's scales flushed pale green with alarm. Asteroid field showing coordinated movement patterns. Sir? Reem's claws dug into the arms of his command chair. The Third Fleet hung in perfect attack formation. 15 capital ships arranged in a sphere, weapons pointed outward. At the center, the Nerith waited like a coiled spring. Show me, he ordered. The main view screen lit up with a tactical display of the asteroid field. To an untrained eye, the rocks would appear to be drifting randomly. But Reem saw it immediately. Subtle redirections, tiny course corrections that couldn't be natural. Analysis? He demanded. Lena's fingers flew across her console. The movements suggest artificial gravity manipulations, sir. Extremely precise, far more advanced than our own capabilities. She paused, her scales darkening. The pattern, it's similar to recorded human mining operations from the war. Multiple scout ships have disappeared in this sector, Reem reminded his bridge crew. If humans survived, if they've been hiding out here... He let the thought hang in the air. Sir, Weapons Officer Kyle called out. Energy spike detected. Location? It's just it, sir. I can't pinpoint it. It's like it's coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Reem felt his scales tighten against his skin. That was exactly how the war records described human energy signatures. Their technology had never operated by normal rules. "L ships, charge Sunrender cannons," he commanded. "Target the entire asteroid field. We'll destroy it all at once." The fleet responded instantly. 15 planet-killer weapons began to power up, their energy readings climbing rapidly. On his tactical display, Reem watched the targeting solutions spread across the field. "Sir," Lena's voice was barely a whisper, "I'm detecting something else. A pattern in the background radiation. It's a carrier wave, like the ones humans used for their faster-than-light communications." Reem's secondary heart nearly stopped. If there was a carrier wave, that meant, "They're already talking to someone," he breathed. "Which means multiple new contacts," Kyle shouted. Sir, they're emerging from inside the asteroids themselves." The tactical display exploded with new signatures. What had appeared to be solid rocks were splitting open, revealing vessels unlike anything Reem had ever seen. They seemed to bend light around themselves, their forms difficult to focus on, as if they existed partially in another dimension. "Sunrender cannons at 90% charge," Kyle reported, her voice shaking. "Firing solutions ready." This was it, the moment every merit captain trained for but prayed would never come. Reem opened his mouth to give the fire order, and then he saw it. "Delay that order," he shouted. "All ships, hold fire." "Sir?" Kyle turned to him in confusion. "Look at the pattern," Reem said, pointing to the tactical display. "The asteroids, the ships, the energy readings, they're not random. They're not even trying to hide anymore. They're forming letters." The bridge crew stared as the reality became clear. The human ships were deliberately arranging themselves in space, using their impossible technology to create a message visible only when viewed from the fleet's exact position. In giant letters formed from warships and asteroids, a message appeared. "Leave now, tell no one, or don't leave at all." "Sir," Lena's voice cracked. "I'm detecting more ships. They're everywhere, emerging from what appears to be folded space. Our sensors indicate—" She swallowed hard. The technology level is beyond our ability to classify." Reem stared at the display, watching as hundreds, then thousands of human vessels simply appeared from nowhere, surrounding his fleet in a perfect sphere. His tactical computer tried to assess their capabilities and simply displayed error, complete expeditionary force. "Sir," Kyle asked, her claw hovering over the Sunrender controls, "your orders?" Reem looked at the message again, understanding finally hitting him. The humans hadn't revealed themselves out of carelessness or discovery. They'd let themselves be found. This entire sector was a message, a warning to any Mirth fleet that came looking. "We are here. We have always been here. And we are far beyond anything you can comprehend." "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "Power down all weapons. Slow withdrawal to safe jump distance." He looked at the impossible ships surrounding them, remembering the war footage he'd studied. "And pray they let us leave at all." As his ships began their careful retreat, Reem couldn't help but wonder. How many other human outposts existed in Mirth space? How many other sectors held secrets like this? And most terrifying of all, what were they building out here that required such absolute secrecy? The answers, he suspected, would haunt his nightmares for years to come. "They're not moving to intercept," Kyle reported, her scales flickering between combat-ready red and terror-pale white. Human vessels maintaining containment sphere, but taking no hostile action. Reem stood before the tactical display, watching the impossible ships that surrounded his fleet. Their retreat was painfully slow, necessary to avoid appearing threatening, but every second felt like an eternity. "Sir," Lena called from her science station, "I've completed initial analysis of their tech signatures." She paused, checking her readings again. "Captain, this can't be right." "Show me." The main screen filled with sensor data. Reem's scales went cold as he read the results. "These readings," Lena continued, "they suggest the human ships aren't generating energy fields or drive signatures because they're not using engines at all. They're manipulating space-time itself for propulsion." "Explain," Reem demanded, though his hearts already knew the horrifying truth. "Sir, remember those old war records? How human ships seem to appear and disappear at will?" Lena's claws tapped rapid commands into her console. They weren't using stealth technology or teleportation. They were literally folding space around themselves. And these ships? They're orders of magnitude more advanced than anything in our historical records. A new alert blurred across the bridge. "Energy spike," Kyle shouted. "Massive power signature from the nearest human vessel." "Face affection," Reem began to order, but stopped as he realized what he was seeing. The human ship closest to them hadn't moved. Instead, it seemed to ripple, as if reality itself was bending around it. A moment later, a familiar shape appeared beside it. "Sir!" Lena's voice was barely a whisper. That's the Vigilant. One of the scout ships that went missing in the sector 3 weeks ago." The Mirth scout ship hung motionless in space, completely intact. As they watched, more ripples appeared, and 2 more lost scout ships materialized. "No signs of damage," Kale reported. "Life support active. I'm detecting crew life signs. They're all alive." A communication channel opened without any input from their systems. A voice spoke, not in modern Mirth language, but in the ancient military dialect from the war era. The translation was clear. "Your scouts were curious. We kept them safe. They have seen nothing they shouldn't. Take them home." Reem felt his scales tighten. The humans hadn't just captured the scout ships. They'd kept them in perfect condition, preserved their crews, and now were returning them unharmed. The message was clear. We could have destroyed them at any time. We chose not to. "Sir," Lena's voice shook. "I'm detecting quantum entanglement signatures throughout the sector. They're everywhere. The whole region is under some kind of space-time observation web. They've been watching us the entire time. They've probably been watching everything in this sector for years." Another alert sounded. "Captain," Kyle called out, "the Sunrender cannons, they're gone." "What do you mean, gone?" "Just gone, sir. All 15 of them. Like they never existed. The mounting points are clean, no sign they were ever attached." As if in response to Kill's report, another message appeared on their screens, again in ancient Mirth dialect. "Your weapons are crude, inefficient, wasteful. We have recycled them into something useful. A reminder, secrecy or death." Reem stared at the message, understanding dawning. The humans hadn't stayed hidden out of fear. They hadn't built secret bases because they were weak. They'd done it because the alternative would have meant unleashing their full technological might on the galaxy. They weren't prey hiding from hunters. They were apex predators choosing not to slaughter the lesser species. "Sir," Lena called out softly, "I'm detecting similar quantum signatures throughout Mert space. Hundreds of them, thousands, all previously masked by background radiation." She looked up, her scales nearly white. "They're everywhere. They've always been everywhere." "Message from the Vigilant," Kel reported. "Captain Mira reports her crew has no memory of the past 3 weeks. Last thing they remember is entering this sector. Sir, what do we tell High Command?" Reem watched as the human ships began to fade from view, disappearing back into whatever fold of space-time they occupied. The message was clear. They could be anywhere, watching anything, at any time. And the Mirth Empire would never know unless humans chose to reveal themselves. "Plot a course home," he ordered quietly. "We tell Command exactly what happened, and we pray they understand what I now do." He turned to face his crew. "The humans didn't survive our genocide by luck or skill. They survived because we never had a chance of destroying them in the first place. And the only reason any Mirths still live," he gestured to the returning scout ships, "is because they choose to show mercy." As the fleet began its long journey home, Reem couldn't shake one final, terrifying thought. What could be so important that a species with this level of power would choose to remain hidden? What were they building out here in the dark between the stars? Perhaps, he realized, some questions were better left unanswered. "Captain!" Lena's voice cracked with panic. "Incoming vessels! Mirth signatures!" Reem spun toward the tactical display. They were only halfway through plotting their retreat course when 5 new capital ships dropped out of hyperspace directly behind them. The reinforcement fleet that High Command had promised days ago had finally arrived. And they were about to make everything so much worse. "The Far Reach is hailing us," Kiel reported. "It's Admiral Cross himself." Before Reem could respond, the humans' ships reappeared, not gradually, not with any warning. One moment space was empty, the next moment thousands of vessels simply existed where nothing had been before. The quantum probability field they generated was so intense that reality itself seemed to blur around them. "Sir," Lena whispered, "the human ships, they're different now." She was right. Gone was any pretense of hiding their capabilities. The vessels had transformed, unfolding into geometric shapes that hurt to look at, as if they existed in more dimensions than Mirth's eyes could process. Energy readings from a single ship now exceeded the output of some stars. Admiral Cross's hologram appeared on the bridge, his scales dark with battle rage. "Captain Reem, our long-range sensors detected human signatures. Why haven't you opened fire? The Sunrender cannons had—" "Removed, Admiral," Reem interrupted. "The humans simply took them, like they were collecting toys from children." "Impossible. All ships open fire maximum." A new voice cut through all their communications simultaneously. It spoke in perfect modern mirth, but with undertones that made Reem's scales want to crawl off his body and hide. "Enough?" Every screen, every display, every computer on every ship suddenly showed the same image. Earth, as it had appeared before the war. But not as the Mirth remembered it. This was Earth as it truly had been. A fortress world of impossible technologies, defended by weapons that broke physics itself. "Your history is a lie," the voice continued. "Observe." The image changed, showing the final battle for Earth. But not the sanitized version Reem had watched in the archives. This was the true recording. The massive Mirth fleet approached Earth, 10,000 ships strong, ready to end humanity forever. They fired their planet-killer weapons, and everything simply stopped. The entire Mirth fleet froze in space-time, their weapons fire suspended mere moments from Earth's atmosphere. Then a single human voice, speaking ancient Mirth. "They're not ready, not yet. Reset and hide. The project must continue." The footage showed what really happened next. Earth didn't die. Earth didn't burn. Earth and its defenders simply vanished, leaving behind only radioactive ruins and false evidence of their destruction. The greatest victory in Mirth history had been staged, a magic trick on a planetary scale. "Your empire exists because we allow it," the voice stated. "Your expansion continues because it does not yet interfere with the project." "What project?" Admiral Cross demanded. "What are you—" Irrelevant. "You have entered the restricted space. Normally this would result in your immediate removal." Reem felt his scales go cold. Removal. Not destruction. Not death. Just removal. Like the scout ships. Like Earth itself. "However," the voice continued, "a demonstration is required." One of the newly arrived Mirth ships, the Eternal Glory, began to shimmer. Not the whole ship, just a perfect sphere of space, about 10 meters in diameter, located in the vessel's engineering section. That's where their main reactor is," Lena whispered. The sphere of space containing the reactor simply vanished. No explosion, no warning, just gone. The Eternal Glory went dark, drifting powerless. "Conventional removal of reactor core completed," the voice announced. "Now observe quantum removal." Another ship, the Starbreaker, began to flicker. But this was different. The ship didn't just go dark. It began to unexist. Reem watched in horror as the massive vessel literally retroactively ceased to be. Not just the physical structure, but every trace it had ever existed at all. Crew memories, computer records, maintenance logs. Everything about the Starbreaker was being surgically removed from reality itself. Within seconds, none of the Mirth present could remember how many ships had arrived as reinforcements. Had it been 5? 4? The numbers felt wrong in their heads, like trying to remember a dream. "Demonstration completed," the voice declared. "You will leave. You will report that this sector is uninhabitable due to quantum instability. You will never return." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Cross demanded, though his scales had gone ghost-white. For the first time, something like emotion entered the voice, something like, amusement. "Then we will remember how to be angry." The human ships began to fold away again, their impossible geometries collapsing back into quantum probability states. The last message needed no translation, no explanation. "The galaxy exists because we chose peace. Do not make us chose either." As the human ships vanished and the Admiral's hologram sputtered into silence, Reem realized a terrible truth. They had never been hunting humans. They had been hunting gods. "Fire! All ships open fire!" Admiral Cross's command crackled through the fleet's comm system. His scales were nearly black with rage and terror. "I don't care what we just saw. The royal family's orders are absolute. Fire everything we have." Reem watched in horror as the remaining ships of the reinforcement fleet charged their weapon systems. His own crew looked to him, waiting for his order to join what could only be described as mass suicide. Soleil that order, Reem shouted into the fleet-wide channel. Admiral, they just erased a capital ship from existence itself. Not destroyed, erased. How can you possibly think? Because they're human, Cross roared back. Don't you understand? This is exactly why our ancestors tried to destroy them. This level of power. No species should have this kind of ability. They're an affront to the natural order. The tactical display lit up as the Admiral's remaining ships launched their full arsenal. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and relativistic kill vehicles streaked toward the spots where the human vessels had vanished. Every single weapon passed through empty space. Disappointing. The voice returned, resonating through their bones. The human ships reappeared, but differently this time. Their geometries were sharper, more aggressive. The quantum probability field around them pulsed, with what could only be described as irritation. We offered mercy. You responded with violence. Typical. Admiral, Reem tried one last time. Stand down, please. They could have killed us 1,000 times over. They're trying to avoid bloodshed. Better to die fighting than live knowing these abominations exist, Cross snarled. All ships, prepare antimatter warheads. We'll take them with us. The Admiral's hologram froze mid-sentence, but it wasn't a communication glitch. Time itself had stopped for the reinforcement fleet, trapping them in a moment of suicidal defiance. Captain Reem, the voice addressed him directly, you showed wisdom. You will bear witness. Witness to what? Reem asked, his scales tight with dread. To mercy and its limits. Reality shimmered around the frozen Mirth ships. Reem's science officer gasped as her readings went wild. Captain, Lina reported, her voice shaking, they're moving the ships through time, not space, time. The frozen vessels began to age. Decades passed in seconds. Paint faded, hull plates oxidized, systems failed, but the crews remained frozen, untouched by the temporal acceleration. I'm so glad that your staying is so good and so probable, and it's baffling. The ships were centuries old now, falling apart from sheer age. Still, their crews remained perfect, preserved in their moment of frozen aggression. Your admiration for masters of the art enters into my heart. My blood boils as I think about the two of you. Your immaturity will kill me. It is the worst evolution of character. You're droning on about the importance of genius. Time snapped back to normal. The ancient, decaying ships hung motionless in space, their crews suddenly aware of what had happened. Screams filled the comm channels as they realized their vessels were literally crumbling around them. Your ships will fail in approximately 10 minutes, the voice informed them. Your life support is already critical. Captain Reem, you may rescue the service spell, but by no means commit yourself. Captain Reem, you may rescue the service spell, but by no means commit yourself. You're letting me decide if they live or die? Reem asked. Something like dark amusement colored the voice's response. We are letting you choose to show mercy, as we did, as we do, as we will continue to do until the project requires even more mercy. The human ships began to fold away again, their geometries collapsing into quantum impossibilities. But before they vanished completely, one final message burned itself into every screen, every display, every computer in the fleet. Remember this moment, children of Mirth. Remember when you thought yourself hunters. Remember what you found instead. Remember why we choose to hide. Sir? Kill's voice was barely a whisper. "Your orders. The Admiral's ships. They have less than 9 minutes of life support remaining." Reem looked at the tactical display, at the dying ships, at the empty space where beings of godlike power had chosen not to obliterate them all. "Launch rescue operations," he commanded. "All ships, prepare for emergency evacuation procedures." He turned to his communications officer. "And send a message to High Command. Tell them," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "tell them we found what we were looking for, and may whatever gods exist have mercy on us if we ever find it again." As his crew rushed to save the survivors of the Admiral's foolish last stand, Reem couldn't help but wonder, when humanity's mysterious project was finally complete, would there be any mercy left to give? The Narath's medical bay was over capacity. Survivors from the Admiral's aged ships filled every available space, many still in shock from their brush with temporal acceleration. Reem stood in the doorway, watching as his medical staff treated crew members who, moments ago from their perspective, had been sitting at fully functioning combat stations. "How are they?" he asked Chief Medical Officer Senna. "Physically? Perfect. Whatever the humans did, they preserved the crews completely." Senna's scales shifted uneasily. "Mentally, they experienced centuries passing in an instant while fully conscious. I've had to sedate most of them." Admiral Cross sat alone in a corner, staring at his hands. His scales had gone gray, not with fear or anger, but with something deeper, something broken. "Hasn't spoken since we brought him aboard," Senna said quietly. "Just keeps looking at his hands and muttering about time being wrong." Reem's communicator chirped. "Captain to the bridge. Priority message from High Command." When he reached the bridge, the tactical display showed why. 3 more Mirth battle groups had entered the sector, 30 capital ships, all armed with planet killers. "They're demanding we join their attack formation," Kill reported. They say the royal family has ordered the sector sterilized, all of it, every planet, every asteroid, every cubic meter of space." Reem felt his scales tighten. They still didn't understand. Even after everything they'd seen, the Empire still thought they could fight this. "Sir," Lena called from her science station, "quantum signatures detected. Massive energy spikes throughout the sector." The tactical display lit up as human ships simply appeared around the new battle groups. Not thousands this time, millions, an armada that dwarfed anything the Mirth had ever assembled. "Captain Reem," the now familiar voice echoed through the ship, "you will witness again." What are they?" Kyle started to ask. Reality twisted. The space around the Mirth battle groups began to fold in impossible ways. Reem watched in horror as the ships were literally pushed out of normal space-time, forced into some higher dimension that hurt to look at. "What's happening to them?" he demanded. Lena's claws flew across her console. "They're being moved, not through space, not through time, through possibility itself. The humans are shifting them into a parallel reality where they never entered this sector at all." "Can they do that? Just change history?" "Sir," Lena's voice shook, "I don't think there's anything they can't do." The battle groups vanished completely, along with any trace they had ever been there. Reem felt memories shifting in his head as causality rewrote itself around the change. "The other reality needed these ships more," the voice exclaimed. "A tragedy was prevented. Balance is maintained." You saved them?" Reem asked. "Save them from what?" "From necessary. Had they attacked, we would have been forced to respond. Now, in another reality, they will live. They will find empty space where we are not. They will return home safely. And what about us? Reem gestured to his ship, to the traumatized survivors they carried. Why not simply erase us too? Why let us remember? For the first time, the voice carried something like gentleness. Because the galaxy must know, must understand. When the project is complete, changes will come. The species must be ready. Ready for what? For evolution. The human ships began to fold away again, but slower this time. As they vanished, their true forms became briefly visible, structures of pure mathematics, geometry made from probability itself, entities that simply couldn't exist in normal space-time. Your task begins now, Captain Reem. Return home. Tell them what you saw. Tell them what you learned. Tell them why we hide. And if they don't believe me, they will, because you will show them. Suddenly, every computer on the Nearath lit up with new data. Star charts, sensor logs, quantum formulae, but not just information, understanding. As if the humans had uploaded not just data, but the ability to comprehend it. A gift, the voice explained. The beginning of comprehension. Use it wisely. Prepare them for what comes. What exactly is coming? Reem asked. But the human ships were gone. All that remained was one final message on his personal display. The end of evolution's childhood. The beginning of something greater. Prepare them, Captain Reem. Prepare them for transcendence. As the Nearath began its long journey home, Reem looked at the data the humans had given them. With each passing moment, his understanding grew, and with understanding came a terror greater than anything he'd felt before. The humans hadn't hidden themselves out of fear. They'd hidden themselves to work, to build, to prepare. And when their work was complete, the galaxy would never be the same. The royal palace's war room fell silent as Reem finished presenting the sensor logs. The assembled admirals and nobles stared at the holographic display, showing human ships folding space itself, their impossible geometries hurting even recorded images. "This cannot be real," First Admiral Krell declared, his scales dark with denial. "These readings violate fundamental laws of physics." "That's exactly the point," Reem responded, accessing more of the data the humans had given him. "They don't operate within our understanding of physics. They transcend it entirely." The room's quantum displays suddenly flickered. Every screen, every hologram began showing the same message: speak truth, showing truth. Perceive Shafgar Shatel, one faith, Shafgar Shatel, person, friends. "What's happening?" the First Admiral demanded. "They're watching," Reem said quietly. "They've always been watching, and now they want everyone to know." The quantum processors the humans had gifted him interfaced directly with the palace's systems. Suddenly, every communication device in the capital began broadcasting. Every screen showed the truth, the real footage of Earth's fake destruction, the temporal manipulation of the Admiral's ships, the quantum displacement of the battle groups. "Stop this immediately," Royal Guard Commander Vex ordered. "This is classified." "Classification irrelevant," a familiar voice echoed through the chamber. "The time of hiding ends." The assembled leadership watched in horror as their secure bunker's quantum sensors activated, revealing what had always been there: human observation posts threaded throughout reality itself, woven into the fabric of space-time around every major Mirth world. "By all the gods," someone whispered, "they're everywhere." "Not gods," Reem corrected, understanding flowing through the quantum interface in his mind. Something else. Something becoming more than mere matter and energy. And they've been preparing us, preparing all species, for what comes next. What comes next? First Admiral Krell demanded. What are you talking about? The voice answered, evolution, transcendence, the end of physical limitation. The holographic display showed it then, the truth about the human project, glimpses of machinery that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, construction on a scale that encompassed entire galactic arms, a plan to alter the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. You see? Reem asked the stunned leadership. They didn't hide out of fear. They didn't stay secret out of weakness. They've been building something that will change everything. And they've been protecting us, protecting all species until it's ready. Protecting us? Commander Vex scoffed. They've been manipulating us, controlling us. Incorrect, the voice responded. Had we whispered control, you would never have known. We GUIDed, we sheltered, we prepared. Through the quantum interface, Reem understood. The humans had spent centuries subtly directing the evolution of all spacefaring species, leading them toward the capacity to comprehend what was coming, the ability to survive transcendence. They could have conquered us at any time, he explained to the assembled leaders, could have erased us from history, rewritten reality itself to suit their needs. Instead, they chose to shepherd us, to protect us from truths we weren't ready to comprehend. And now? First Admiral Krell asked, his scales pale with understanding. Now you must choose, the voice announced. Accept glory in flight toward transcendence, or remain as you are, in isolation from what comes. The quantum displays showed it all, the full scope of human advancement, their mastery over space, time, and probability itself, their work spanning galaxies, their consciousness evolved beyond mere organic limitation. And through it all, their choice to guide rather than destroy, to protect rather than conquer, to prepare rather than dominate. The royal family has always known, haven't they? Reem asked, though the quantum interface was already showing him the answer. They've been working with the humans all along. Part some call to truth, the voice confirmed. Some knew. Some helped. Some understood the necessity of preparation. The war room's doors opened. Queen Mother Vesa herself entered, her scales shimmering with patterns Reem had never seen before. We did what was necessary, she declared. Helped hide their existence while they worked. Helped prepare our people for what must come. She turned to face the assembled leadership. The time of hiding is over. Now comes the time of transformation. As if in response, the human quantum signatures throughout the palace intensified. Reality itself seemed to bend as their true forms became partially visible. Beings of pure information and energy, their consciousness spread across multiple dimensions. The choice comes soon, the voice announced, for all species, all worlds, all realities. Reem looked at his fellow officers, at the nobles and leaders of his people. He saw the fear in their scales, the terror of comprehending how small they truly were in the scope of existence. But he also saw understanding dawning, the same understanding the quantum interface had given him, the same truth the humans had spent centuries preparing them to face. Reality itself was about to change, and only those ready to transcend would survive what came next. 1 year later, Captain Reem stood on the observation deck of the Nerath, watching as another Mirth world received its first official human delegation. The quantum interface in his mind, now a permanent fixture for all senior Mirth officials, helped him perceive the true nature of their visitors, beings of pure probability and consciousness, choosing to manifest in physical form out of courtesy rather than necessity. "The evacuation of the outer colonies is proceeding as scheduled," Lena reported, her own quantum interface glowing softly beneath her scales. 87% of the population has been relocated to the designated transcendent zones. "And the resistance?" Reem asked, though the interface was already showing him the answer. "Minimal now," his science officer replied. "Once people understand what's coming, what the humans have been preparing us for, well, it's hard to argue with reality itself." Through the quantum network that now connected all senior Mirth officials, Reem could feel the ripples of change spreading through their civilization. The humans had been methodical in their revelations, showing each species exactly what they needed to see to understand the gravity of what approached. "Sir," Kyle called from her station, "quantum signatures spike. They are ready to show us more." The observation deck's view shifted as human technology enhanced their perception. Reem watched as reality peeled back like layers of an onion, revealing the true scope of what humanity had built during their centuries of hiding. They had transformed entire galactic arms into computational engines, processing power beyond comprehension, dedicated to a single vast calculation. They had woven quantum observers into the fabric of space-time itself, creating a network that spanned multiple universes. And at the heart of it all, they had built something that defied description, a machine that existed simultaneously in all possible realities, designed to do the impossible. "It's beautiful," Lena whispered, her scales shimmering with awe as the quantum interface helped her comprehend what she was seeing. "And necessary," the familiar voice echoed through their minds. No longer alien and terrifying, it had become almost comforting over the past year of preparation. Through the interface, Reem understood more with each passing moment. The humans hadn't hidden themselves out of fear or mercy alone. They had hidden because what they were building, what they were becoming, required absolute secrecy. The very act of being observed by unprepared minds could have collapsed the quantum structures they were creating. "Progress report?" the voice requested. "The Mirth people are adapting well to the preliminary quantum modifications," Reem reported, knowing the humans already knew, but appreciating their courtesy in asking. "The biological upgrades are taking hold. Consciousness expansion is proceeding within expected parameters." "Acceptable, and your personal analysis?" Reem considered carefully, looking out at his transformed civilization. The Mirth Empire had fundamentally changed in the years since the truth was revealed. The old obsession with military power and territorial control had given way to a desperate race to prepare for what was coming. The quantum interfaces had shown them all the truth. Physical reality as they knew it was about to undergo a fundamental shift. "We're ready," he said finally, "or as ready as we can be. The separation protocols are in place for those who choose to remain purely physical. The transcendent zones are prepared for those who wish to evolve. Whatever comes next, we face it with open eyes." "Great find. Your species has adapted well. Others have been less accepting." Through the interface, Reem saw flashes of other civilizations struggling with the revelation. Some had rejected the truth entirely, choosing isolation and eventual obsolescence. Others had embraced it too eagerly, damaging themselves in premature attempts at transcendence. The humans had been right to proceed carefully, to spend centuries preparing each species differently, according to their nature. "How long?" he asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. The final calculations complete soon, the great filter approaches. Ah, yes, the great filter. The quantum interface had helped them understand that concept too. The ultimate test of sentient life wasn't technology or biology or even consciousness itself. It was the ability to survive the fundamental transformation of reality that occurred when sufficient computational power accumulated in the universe. The humans hadn't been building a weapon or a tool. They had been building a support structure, a quantum framework to help physical life survive the universe's metamorphosis into something far stranger and more wonderful than mere matter and energy. "Any last instructions?" Reem asked, watching as more of his people received their quantum interfaces, their scales beginning to shimmer with patterns that existed in higher dimensions. "Continue preparation, maintain hope, remember mercy." The human presence began to fade, their work on this world nearly complete. But before they vanished entirely, one final message echoed through the quantum network. "When reality changed, remember this. We hid not from weakness, but for love. We worked not for power, but for beginning. We prepared you not for end, but for beginning." As the last human ships folded away into quantum probability, Reem looked out at his transformed world. The old Mirth Empire was gone, replaced by something new, something ready to face the ultimate test of existence itself. "Send word to the remaining colonies," he ordered. "Final preparations begin now. When reality changes," he touched the quantum interface gently, feeling the knowledge flow through him. "We change with it." The stars seemed to shimmer differently now, as if reality itself was holding its breath. The great project was nearly complete. The time of hiding was over. Now came the time of transcendence. And somewhere out there, humanity watched and waited and hoped that their centuries of careful preparation would be enough to help their younger siblings survive the universe's final evolution. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. Feel free to comment and share this story too. It helps the channel grow. Let's make this channel huge together.